Yes, sir. What's going on, baby? Back again. Happy to be here. Last week was a total disaster. My man Brett in the stew, my producer, my editor, he had a little bit of, he had the vid. And, I tried to do it all myself. I had the mixer set up on the software. I had the mic set up. I had the whole shebang going, the lighting, etc. And that neon light behind me completely fell over and smashed at about 5 minutes in. And I was completely disappointed. It completely left me a little bit rattled. But you know what? I pushed through, recorded another 25 minutes. And of course, the audio sounded like I was in a bathtub. So happy to have my man Brett in the stew again. And here we are. So welcome back to AC Radio. I'm your host, Adam Caplan. And you know me, we're going to be talking today a little bit about Jake Paul, fitness, a little bit of motivation as usual. And lastly, we're going to wrap it up with having a little bit of fun. Okay, we're going to wrap it up with having a little bit of fun and learning to have a little bit of more fun in our lives. So let's get right to it. First thing, we got Jake Paul in the news again. He's been beefing with Dana White, beefing with Conor McGregor, calling out Nate Diaz, calling out Masvidal, but he's also a promoter. He's also running Most Valuable Promotions, okay, with Nikisa. Now, you have Katie Taylor, the undisputed 135-pound champion, defending her 4 belts against Amanda Serrano, who's being promoted by Paul. And Jake Paul has single-handedly helped Amanda Serrano not only become a millionaire, but now a household name and a megastar. And that just goes to show you the magnitude of what comes when you're backed by a force like Jake Paul. Now, he's going to be co-promoting the fight with my man Eddie Hearn from Matchroom Boxing. Love Eddie Hearn. Big fan of him. Whenever I'm on Instagram and they have those little memes of saying, which promoter would you like to be promoted by? Eddie Hearn is the guy. I mean, Eddie Hearn is, he gets shit done. And not only that, he's had a great rapport with fighters. And let me tell you something, when you're getting co-promoted by the likes of Canelo, you know for a fact that Eddie Hearn's the guy. So shout out to Eddie Hearn, shout out to Jake Paul in terms of bringing this fight together. We have Ireland's own Katie Taylor, Olympic gold medalist, undisputed boxing champion. And she's going to be taking on Amanda Serrano in New York, MSG, baby, the hometown of Amanda Serrano. So that's going to be a fantastic fight. Big things for Jake Paul to be a part of that. Remember now, the Irish are one of the best traveling fans in the universe. So having Katie Taylor and the Irish packing that stadium is going to blow the fucking roof off of that place. And keep in mind the history of the Puerto Rican and Irish populations that do reside in New York City. So you know what? This is a banger. This was the right place to have the fight, and I'm looking forward to it. Now, what's also been interesting is Michael Bisping beefing with Jake Paul on Twitter. It's always another guy calling out Big Jake, but you know what? He pushed through it again. Michael Bisping obviously said, "You don't want that smoke." I'm gonna take a sip. You know me. You don't want that smoke. Michael Bisping said, "You don't want that smoke." I've said that 3 times now. But Jake Paul said, "Absolutely, I do. I don't give a shit if you're the former UFC middleweight champion who beat Luke Rockhold. I'm willing to beat you and your one-eyed ass." So obviously shots fired there. The issue with this whole thing is that it's pretty obvious that Michael Bisping will not actually get a license from the commission due to the fact that he is going to be fighting with one eye. I don't see Michael Bisping or Jake Paul agreeing to an exhibition bout. They want this on paper. Michael Bisping is a through and through fighter. He's not going to want to do an exhibition bout. He's not going to want to do a bout for charity. And Jake Paul at 5-0 with all the momentum going his way, he doesn't really have time to do that either. So although the beef is entertaining to see, it's just tying the knots again between Jake Paul versus the UFC and less of Jake Paul versus Michael Bisping. Now, people are wondering what's next for Jake Paul. Jake Paul is going to be fighting in August. And what's interesting is that he's going to be co-promoting or advising Alex Wasabi, who I'm not really too sure who he is, but he's a YouTuber from what I understand. And Jake would like to advise him into setting up the deal to have him fight KSI. Now, KSI is a UK megastar in the YouTube game. Apparently, he's a rapper as well. And he's also partners with Jake's brother, Logan Paul, in a sports beverage called Prime, which is actually going to rival Gatorade. And it already has begun to rival Gatorade. I'm slipping on my words here, man. Gotta have a sip of that Happy Dad bread. Guys laughing at me back there. But you know what? We're having fun. That's what we got to do on AC Radio, baby. We having fun. So, I'm going a mile a minute here. I'm spitting all over myself. So what I find a little bit interesting about this, though, is that this isn't the first time that Jake Paul has advised or set up or helped set up about against somebody that he had interest in fighting in. Now, we saw Tommy Fury take on Anthony Pretty Boy Taylor at Tyron Woodley versus Jake Paul #1. And obviously, after Tommy Fury's performance, Jake Paul saw that he could, in fact, take him on and beat the shit out of him. Now, that fight got signed, and it didn't fall through, and we saw Woodley #2 versus Jake Paul, which ended up being the knockout of the year. So, is Jake Paul trying to advise Alex Wasabi because he perhaps now wants to fight KSI? Which would be a mega fight in the content creation game? Or is he just trying his hand like he already is doing with Amanda Serrano in the promoting game? So this is interesting, because Jake Paul went on the record and said, fuck it, I'm not fighting any more YouTubers, I'm only fighting fighters. But now it might seem like he's using Alex Wasabi to kind of get KSI's feet a little bit warm so then he could take on the megastar. We'll actually have megastar versus megastar on in the boxing ring. And the funny thing is that if KSI were to fight Jake Paul, the only motherfucker who's benefiting off of this is Logan Paul. I mean, come on. He's partners with KSI. He's brothers with Jake Paul. All I see is mucho dinero. I mean, you have the content there. The Prime drink will be plastered over the entire process of the content being created from either guy. It'll be promoted in the ring. It'll be promoted in the all access videos. And it'll also blow the roof off if it ends up building a partnership with Showtime Boxing. And I'm not sure what Jake Paul's deal is with Showtime Boxing still, but I mean, hey, if Prime could get in there somehow with Showtime Boxing, like Proper 12 has for Conor McGregor, it's going to be big bank there. So you know what? If I'm Logan Paul, I'm licking my lips, and I want my brother Jake Paul to be fighting KSI. So that could be what's on the horizon. However, Paul is fighting in August, looking to set up Alex Wasabi versus KSI, probably on that undercard. So who, in fact, will Jake Paul fight? I don't know. If I had to guess right now with what we're dealing with, we're in April right now, perhaps it's going to be Tommy Fury. But we will see, because Tommy Fury has a very tough matchup coming up, I believe, against a Polish up-and-comer. So we'll see how that fares. But, that's what we got for Jake Paul right now. Co-promoting one of the biggest women's championship bout in history at MSG, advising Alex Wasabi, one of the biggest YouTubers, and in the next 1 to 2 days, they'll be announcing their next most valuable promotions athlete. So big things on the horizon for Jake Paul as per usual. Gaining fans, gaining momentum as per usual, beefing with the UFC, combating profusely the situation on how the UFC pay fighters, and not only that, helping put women's boxing on the map. I mean, if this guy doesn't have the blueprint to show up in the fucking headlines every week, I don't know who does. Because there is not a thing that this guy has brought into the table in the last 2 years that guys like me aren't eating up. I mean, look at the size of my face. From Jake Contents alone, look at the size of it, baby. It's crazy. So that's what I got for you on the Jake Paul situation. Little Happy Dad intermission. Got the pineapple again. Every time I got the pineapple in me, I'm ready to go. I'm spitting off the dome. That's what I like to hear. Now, we like to segue things very quickly. We go from a Jake Paul rant to a Happy Dad sip, and then all of a sudden we're talking about calculating our caloric goals. Now, keep in mind, a Happy Dad is only 100 calories. Okay, so don't get it twisted now. Now, when you're on a weight loss or bulking journey, okay, Last week, we spoke about calculating our protein goals, 0.75 to 1 gram of protein, okay, multiplied by your body weight. But now you must be thinking, hey, Adam, how do I lose 10 pounds? How do I gain 10 pounds? How do I go from being 150 pounds to 170 with 25 to 20 pounds of muscle? How do I go from 175 pounds to 150 pounds while remaining lean and not having a little bit of that wiry, skinny fat physique? Now, Jordan Syatt, great content creator on Instagram. If you are not following Jordan Syatt, I suggest you do. And I follow guys like this because they help simplify the long and strenuous journey of health and fitness. Now, if you have a goal in mind that you want to weigh, all you're going to do is multiply your goal weight multiplied by 12, okay? So if you are 150 pounds and you want to get to 170, you're going to do 170 times 12, and that will be a rough estimate or an approximate of what your caloric target is for the day, okay? And what's important about that is, ladies and gentlemen, is if you are not hitting close to that target and you are trying to put on size, it's not going to happen because your body is maybe going to be near a deficit. And that's not what you're looking for when you're looking to put on size. You need to be in a caloric surplus. And when you're on a weight loss journey, okay, you need to know what your caloric goals are in order to actually know whether or not we're on that right track, okay? So what I'd like to do is I like to multiply my goal body weight times 12. And then usually what I do is I plus or minus 300 calories. And the reason why I do that is because I have to factor in my workout. If you're somebody who burns a lot of calories during your workouts, you're going to want to add extra calories. Because what's going to happen is instead of being in a 200 calorie deficit or a 200 calorie surplus, actually, let's only focus on the deficit for now. If you are in a deficit of 200 calories, okay, that's an appropriate one, 1 to 200 calories a day. But say you're in a 500 caloric deficit throughout a day. When we calculate that over 7 days, that's a lot of calories that our bodies didn't take in. And then what tends to happen is we probably didn't hit our protein goals. So then we start to gorge. Then we start to binge. So the reason why I like to add 200 to 300 calories to that estimate is because I also factor in my workouts. Okay. And when I burn a lot of calories through a workout, then maybe I'm going to eat a little bit extra closer to my caloric goal so that in 3-4 days from now, I don't get that hormonal episode where I'm like, fuck it, I want to eat. Okay, so you're going to take your goal body weight, multiply it by 12. And then what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to track a couple of your workouts to see how many calories you burn on average. Okay, and then factor that into your diet as well. That'll be super important because what's going to happen is you're going to get that hormonal shitty feeling where you're like, fuck it, I just need to eat something. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so don't forget to factor in how many calories we're burning in a workout, especially if we're tracking our workouts, okay? We have to track our workouts, okay? And that brings me to my next point. My next point is when we're starting from ground zero, all we need to focus on is ourselves. We need to get MyFitnessPal. We need to download Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel. And then from there, what we also need to do is perhaps download the app Strava. Okay, because when we're calculating our calories, when we're calculating our protein, we need to also enter it into a database so that we get an overall overview of the trajectory that we're going in for the day in terms of fueling and the calories that we're burning. Now, if you're on a weightlifting program, we need Google Sheets. We need all of the tabs that are showing week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, so that we could actually go back in time and see the improvements in our lifts. Hey, in 3 weeks, I've went up 25 pounds in my bench press, but in 3 weeks, I've also only gone up 5 pounds in my squat. What's going on there? Perhaps we need to go back and see what we could do to help get those gains back, or to also pat ourselves on the back from all the hard work which we've done. If we don't track it, then how are we actually going to know the improvements that we're making? Okay, so if you're on a weightlifting journey, you need to track it through Google Sheets. And if you're on a cardiovascular journey, whether it's running or biking or maybe even swimming, you need to get a fitness tracker that is going to track the number of kilometers, your kilometer per minute, and also your GPS route in general. Because what's going to happen is we tend to always have the same routes and the same kilometer goal in mind. And then we need to track our data to see if we're actually improving. Now, one of the biggest issues that I see, though, is that we start to compare ourselves with the average population. We start to Google, how much is a person who weighs 150 pounds supposed to back squat? How much is the average 5K time? Guys, when we're starting from ground zero, why are we comparing ourselves to the average population? Why are we doing that? The only person that you should be competing with is yourself. You are competing with your MyFitnessPal app. You are competing with your Google Sheets. You are competing with your Strava app. Why? Because the only fucking data on it is your data. So why are we focusing on the average population? Fuck the average population. When you wake up in the morning, you are a one of one. Do you think about the average population with all your biggest goals and aspirations? No, you do not. So you should not think about your back squat compared to the average population. You should not think about your 5K versus the average population. What you should be doing is looking at your numbers on Google Sheets, looking at your statistics with each runner cycle on Strava, and only comparing it with your last completed run or cycle, or your last few weeks of lifting, or your last session. That is who we are competing against. We're competing with the man or woman in the mirror. We are not competing with the average population. So guys, when we're starting from ground zero, why are we trying to compare ourselves with people that have done, when you're thinking of the average population, think how many runs and lifts that are. It's thousands and millions of lifts and runs compared to maybe your 2, 3, 4 times that you've done. You see that spit, how it went, thing bent like Beckham, baby. And guy Brady laughing at me in the back, And that's what it is. Why are we comparing ourselves to the average population when perhaps we're only at the beginning of our journey? So guys, get Google Sheets, get MyFitnessPal, get Strava, start tracking your momentum. So on those dark days, on those tough days, you could reflect on that data to actually prove to yourself that you are improving. Or perhaps you'll get a real warm cup of a nice shut the fuck up and go back to work, and it'll remind you that you haven't worked hard enough based off of your statistics and your progression. Calculate your protein, 0.75 times 0.75 to 1 gram, multiplied by your body weight, multiplying a caloric goal. You got your goal body weight multiplied by 12. You download your MyFitPal, you get your Google Sheets, and last but not least, if you're on a cardiovascular journey, you download Strava. And guys, the only people that we are competing against is ourselves, and we're leading by example. Okay, we are leading by example, and I'm going to keep repeating myself with certain things. And those of you that are going to stick with me on this journey, on this podcast journey, or whatever journey that we're on, who even fucking knows, okay, you are going to hear these constant reminders. As long as they're in my brain, I'm going to be reminding them to you. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about, actually, me and Brett were talking about this at the beginning of the pod, and it was about having fun. We hit the ground running pretty hard in the first episode. Like I spoke about before, we're inside of my gym where I run my business, and now I've also built my podcast studio in here, and I've hired Brett to do the editing and the production. And, in a short amount of time, we've built such a great relationship, and, we truly treat it like a business. And when we hit the ground running on the reels, and the views were coming in, and we were hitting close to 4,000. We were hitting 1,100. YouTube went over 200. I had already broken everything that I had done in past podcasts. And then I woke up and I had this oh fuck feeling. like the pressure started to set in. Like, this wasn't fun anymore. Like, this is real. Like, now the ball's rolling. It's time to go. And, we had some mishaps. Brett had COVID. I tried to record on my own. My neon light broke that I had when I was 13 for my bar mitzvah. My mom's still yelling at me over it. So, it was stressful. But at the end of the day, I took a hard look at myself. Took a hard look in the mirror, and I thought to myself, you got to learn to have more fun, bro. Everything that you do, you always try to take to like this highest level, and then what happens is those light Nikes that you had on feel like cement boots, and then you barely even fucking move. So you know what, kid? You're your first episode in. Have a little bit of fun. You love doing it. People love listening to you, and if they don't love listening to you, then fuck you too. It's all good. But at the end of the day, we got to show up and we got to have fun. And, I invite everybody to start having more fun. It's tough out there, guys. We work 40 hours a week. Some of us have kids on the way, I'm drinking Happy Dad for a reason, baby. It ain't just because I like the beverage. So, we all have things that are coming our way and having pressures and stress. Some of us aren't where we want to be. Some of us are on our way to where we want to be, and that scares us too. So guys, we got to learn to have a little bit more fun. You got to go back to doing the things you love. Not everything you need to make a buck off of it. Not everything you need to get a like off of it or a dap from a friend or someone saying, oh my God, you're so fucking gorgeous. You're so hot. Not everything you do in your life needs to be validated. Okay? You need to validate yourself. You need to feel that fun in your heart. I'm fumbling like crazy today. I made a couple of blah, blah, blahs and blah, 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 whatever it is. I don't give a fuck because I'm having fun. And I'm going to be here hopefully every fucking Tuesday. So what's the difference? So guys, take a look at yourself. Stop taking things always so seriously, because what we don't realize is when we try to force ourselves 5 steps forward, we end up moving 10 steps back. Okay? So let's enjoy the small stuff. Let's enjoy the journey. Let's enjoy the small steps. Okay? Not always the end goal. Not always the big house, 5 cars, big chains, butlers, the whole thing. Let's enjoy it each step. And God willing, if it gets there, then that's fantastic. But if it doesn't, know in your heart that you could look back on it, you could reflect, you could digest it, and most importantly, you could actually appreciate it, because that's the shit that we remember when we have to look back on things. We don't always remember, I went to the store, I bought the Rolly. Went to the club, I bought the Dom P. No one remembers that. What you remembered is who you were when you bought that watch. Who you were with, rather, when you bought that watch. Or where you were at in your life, or why did you buy that watch. And you don't remember that bottle of Dom P at the club. You remember who you were with and why you were there and the memories that you had there. And that's what you should be focusing on. So guys, let's learn to have a little bit of fun. I'm trying to learn to have a little bit of fun. Happy Easter. Happy Passover. I love you all. And I'll see you next fucking Tuesday, baby. AC Radio, we're out.